Jeremy Allen White is going to be nominated for an Oscar for his portrayal of Bruce Springsteen in Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere. And I'm going to spend the next few minutes telling you why his run as the boss is going to skyrocket his Hollywood stock. So you better buy in now. Deliver Me From Nowhere is one of 2025's most anticipated films and one of its most unusual. See, we're so accustomed to musical biopics at this juncture that span major moments of careers like Queen's in Bohemian Rhapsody or Bob Dylan's life in A Complete Unknown. Now, of course, both of those films earned Rami Malek and Timothée Chalamet major award recognition, but Scott Cooper's Springsteen biopic sets Jeremy Allen White up for success in ways that none of the others have done for their leads in the past. By the way, there are some spoilers for the film ahead, so do beware of that. Jeremy Allen White's ascension through the industry has been pretty impressive over the last few years as is. Shameless put him on the map, but the FX hit The Bear made him a household name in the TV and streaming industry. For me, though, the first real sign of White's breakthrough was actually in his supporting role in the 2023 critically acclaimed The Iron Claw, where he portrayed a grief-stricken and depressed Carrie Von Erich. And the clear foundation was laid for White to tackle a part that would not only display his obvious chops, but one that would also allow him to showcase his range, his depth, and his ability to take audiences beneath the surface of a troubled character and allow them to journey into their mind and process. That is very important here. So enter Bruce Springsteen. Sure, you may know Bruce for his 3-hour concert marathons, his blue jean butt on the cover of Born in the USA, or as the unofficial mascot for the entire state of New Jersey. But Deliver Me From Nowhere does something that most biopics don't do. It zeroes in on a very specific period of time in his life, just a few months, a transformative few months, in fact, that paint a picture of a man in complete despair while also battling the construct of fame. The film is based off the Warren Zanes book of the same name and chronicles the making of Nebraska, an album that may be relatively unknown to casual music fans, but considered to be groundbreaking for many artists. Nebraska is a result of intimate demos recorded by Springsteen in his rented Colts Neck, New Jersey home, acoustic takes of songs he eventually would record with his legendary E Street Band. But Springsteen would instead decide that the haunting 4-track demos would actually better capture the tone of the record he was trying to make, or better yet, needed to make at that time, because he didn't even know he was making a record. And even as the record company begged for a mega hit, which, by the way, he already had in the can in Born in the USA and just hadn't put out yet, Springsteen and his business partner John Landau insisted on releasing the album as is, with minimal promotion. It was one of the most daring efforts ever by a major mainstream artist at the time, particularly one who was about to break into playing stadiums. Nebraska is considered by many as one of the first ever DIY projects by a musician, and its legacy is absolutely immense within the music industry today. So why does that actually matter when it comes to Jeremy Allen White? Well, that's because it required him to immerse himself in a Bruce Springsteen that the majority of his fans were unaware even existed in 1982. A man coming off the high of highs, his biggest world tour ever, devolving into total isolation, depression, anxiety, and psychological torture. It's a juxtaposition that's going to show off the versatility of the 34-year-old actor and immediately position him as a Best Actor frontrunner. There are a few moments in Deliver Me From Nowhere where you'll see White drenched in sweat, his Telecaster swinging from his neck and screaming the lyrics of Born to Run in front of thousands of fans at a packed arena. You're going to see him covering 50s and 60s classics and Asbury Park's legendary Stone Pony, an homage to Springsteen's bar band days that put him on the map. And it's here that you're going to see the emulation of the Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, where Jeremy Allen White spent months owning his craft to perfectly play tribute. No, seriously, White was Cooper and Springsteen's first choice to play the role, but there was only one small, tiny little problem. White had no idea how to play guitar. He had no idea how to play the harmonica, and he had no idea how to sing, let alone sing like Bruce Springsteen. He's even said in interviews he recommended they seek someone else out for the job who could actually fit that criteria, but instead, he would dive in and commit himself entirely, spending months learning how to become one of the most famous rockers in music history. We all remember how Joaquin Phoenix embodied Johnny Cash's performing ability in Walk the Line, right? And that was a role that landed him an Oscar nomination for Best Actor, by the way. In that sense, White's very similar in this movie. There are moments in Deliver Me From Nowhere where it's nearly impossible to tell if a pre-recorded track from Springsteen is playing or if it's White's vocals that we're hearing instead. And make no mistake, most of the movie, the vocals you're hearing are White's. He's fully immersed in capturing one of music's most distinct voices ever, channeling Springsteen's gravelly rasp to elicit stadium-stomping sing-alongs in one moment, followed by lo-fi, immensely intense, and intimate acoustic storytellings in songs about men that are desperate to stand out in a world that's left them to die. Let's call it for what it is. Audiences that go to see this movie will be most critical of White's portrayal of Bruce Springsteen, the musician. And with that at the forefront, White delivers one of the most authentic depictions of a mainstream music artist we're ever going to see on the screen. Even Springsteen himself has said he was totally blown away by White's musical ability and questioned whether the voice he had heard in playback was his own or the actor's. But where many biopic leads venture into full-on caricatures, Jeremy Allen White avoids doing so in Deliver Me From Nowhere. As noted, Springsteen has some very distinct qualities about him that make him who he is in the public eye, but White very consciously avoids impressionism. That's a critical element of this movie because it may feel a little out of touch trying to find sympathy for a famous rock star for average Joes like you and me, but when Springsteen spirals into total mental breakdowns and questions his own mortality or battles the demons of his past that haunt him as a result of generational trauma, well, you're not feeling for Bruce Springsteen. You're feeling for the character that White's portraying. And that's so important because in that sense, this could be a movie about anyone. And a great actor knows how to register those emotions that we all face at some point in our lives, encapsulate them, and then allow the viewer to feel compassion for that character's journey. The Bruce Springsteen we see in Deliver Me From Nowhere has an abusive, alcoholic, schizophrenic father. The Bruce Springsteen we see in Deliver Me From Nowhere self-sabotages romantic relationships. And White's at his best in making it feel like that Bruce Springsteen could be someone we know, or truthfully, even any of us. It should also be noted that White plays off the cast around him as a true lead in the film, but one man especially, and that's Jeremy Strong. For the record, I think Strong's also going to get a Best Supporting Actor nomination for his portrayal of Landau. In fact, I'd argue the brotherly bond between Springsteen and Landau is actually the true emotional crux of Deliver Me From Nowhere. The man Landau knows as a larger-than-life rock star quickly devolves into a hermit, one deeply fascinated by middle America murderers, desolate blue-collar husbands, and yes, Atlantic City mobsters. Landau recognizes that Springsteen's demos that eventually formed Nebraska, while artistically brilliant, are a deeply concerning reflection of his rapidly deteriorating mental health and suppressed trauma. Instead of being a cold manager who pushes him to deliver the studio a hit, he pushes him to seek professional therapy instead. He loves Bruce like family, and while their relationship isn't romantic, obviously, it's the most authentic bond in the entire movie. Strong is the power forward who sets a screen for the point guard that is Jeremy Allen White's Bruce Springsteen, and he consistently scores on every opportunity he's given. Their dynamic is refreshing, and they both bring out the best in one another in this film. It's a heartbreaking yet wholesome dynamic that theatergoers are going to immediately resonate with, even if it does venture into some corny cliches at times. Make no mistake, Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere is not a perfect movie. Cooper makes some unique choices in some of his story beats that at times detract from White's brilliance, and there are naturally some timeline creative liberties that may leave some Springsteen diehards screaming to the skies, but thankfully, most of those can be overlooked by White's stirring representation of the boss. And there's also a piece of all this that I think can't be underscored enough when it comes to talking about how good White actually is in this movie. He had to perform with Springsteen on set for a lot of the filming process. And while those involved say Springsteen and Landau mostly took a back seat and allowed the actors to do their jobs, the sheer pressure of one of the biggest names in music history, seeing you embody them during the most vulnerable time of their lives, no doubt carries a heavy crown. White proves in this movie that he was ready for the moment and provides a performance that satisfied Springsteen, Landau, and no doubt the Academy as well. Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere is going to be the role that makes Jeremy Allen White a true lead man in movies going forward. He goes from rocker to singer-songwriter to a man with a dream of life seamlessly, humanizing a larger-than-life figure into a fragile individual who's at a crossroads. This Bruce Springsteen, like the central characters in Nebraska, is in search of salvation. and White was perfectly cast to bring that individual to the big screen. Springsteen's iconic hit Born to Run tells the tale of a young man sprung from cages, ready for bigger and better things. So perhaps it's most appropriate that White's performance in Springsteen Deliver Me from Nowhere is reflective of just that.